Good evening. Before we start tonight's program, this is a reminder that this episode will address various topics related to addiction and will absolutely be centered around my journey and also that of multiple sclerosis. These may be sensitive to some of our viewers. Viewer discretion, as always, is advised. We remind you to please consult your doctor, your mental health professional, your outreach group, your sponsor or specialist before adopting any change to your dietary, physical, and/or mental health regime. If you're looking for options with respect to mental health, contact SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, at 1-800-662-HELP. It's 1-800-662-4357. The service is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and is a confidential free information service for individuals and family members facing such stressors. Importantly, if you're feeling suicidal crisis or emotional distress and need to be put in touch with a crisis center, call the Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. Or go to suicidepreventionlifeline.org. You can also text the word HOME to 741-741. Those resources are also available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And then I'd be remiss not to talk about something that has been paramount in my mind over the last year, but quite frankly, the last 11 years, and that of multiple sclerosis. The National MS Society is a collective of passionate individuals who want to do something about MS now, to move together towards a world free of multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis is comprised of unpredictable and often disabling flare-ups of the central nervous system. Such flare-ups disrupt the flow of information within the brain and between the brain and the body. The National MS Society is the largest private funder of MS researchers in the world, investing more than $1 billion to date. MS stops people from moving, but the National MS Society exists to make sure that MS doesn't. To contact the National MS Society, please call 1-800-344-4867. Once again, 1-800-344-4867. Or go to their website at nationalmssociety.org. Also, as I did last year, I'll be taking part in the Walk MS 2022 in Media, Pennsylvania on April 23rd. We are raising money for this and the National MS Society through a Venture to a Cure's fundraising page at rebrand.ly/A Venture to a Cure. Once again, rebrand.ly/A Venture to a Cure. Thank you to all of you who have donated money to this amazing organization, or even have gone to the National MS Society to learn more about multiple sclerosis and demyelination. It touches me in so many ways, and over the 1 million people in this country who have multiple sclerosis. And we appreciate all of you. And on that, let's begin. One can make the argument that 3 years ago, I did not have control of my journey. I didn't have any sort of personal power to take care of things, especially when things got rough and things got tough. And the only thing I knew how to do was overeat, or drink, or gamble. Then I went to the center of my mind and realized I had to fix this. And that's where everything begins, is upstairs in the mind. Tonight, we're going to talk about what our personal power actually is and how we actually regain it and make it stronger. This is the Venture Forward. Good evening, or good morning once again, or good afternoon even, and welcome to Venture Forward. I am John Venturini, a recovering addict of overeating, obesity, alcoholism, and compulsive gambling, and it is an honor and pleasure to see all of you on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch, and also a Venture to a Cure's fundraising page at rebrand.ly/Venture to a Cure. We will be simulcasting over there for the next month and a half through the National MS Society, and we are very appreciative of the National MS Society carrying our broadcast this evening. So when we talk about personal power, there are a lot of different understandings about what that could possibly be. And when we talk about personal power tonight, it is basically the understanding that there was a lot of work to do, but also a lot of reshuffling of how I was perceiving things, how I was taking care of things, and finding more healthy, more beneficial ways of taking care of them instead of going to the addictions that I had previously. We've talked at some length about those addictions over the last 4 seasons. Tonight, we're going to talk about how all of that comes together, and moreover, how I am getting stronger each and every day by keeping a few things in mind. And we'll get to that in a couple minutes, but I want to say hello to all of you on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch, and who wins the door prize this evening, and that would be Jaden on YouTube, who says hello. Hello, Jaden. Hope you are well. Hope you're having a great evening. We also have Marilyn, who says, hey, hi, Matt and JV, with 3 waves and 3 purple hearts. 3 waves and 3 blue hearts. Right back at you, Marilyn. I hope you are having a great evening as well. And we also have Jamie on YouTube, who says, hey, cool peeps, listen to those birds in the pre-roll. Weren't those birds nice? Talking about something that is important, but just to have the sweet sort of sounds of the birds in the birdhouse and the bird feeder in the background as I was giving the pre-roll was just absolutely awesome. And, you know, if you think about it, that's what this life is. This journey is absolutely awesome. Jamie, good to see you this evening. So we can go at length about the different things that have popped up in this life, and we will do that as a little bit of justification somewhere along the way, probably early in the presentation tonight. But nevertheless, let's get going with what we're talking about, the power that we have. This is episode 4.17. on this April 5th of 2022, and this is the power we have tonight on the Venture Forward. Quick little reminder about the Walk MS Media 2022. It is an incredible organization. I'm looking forward to doing this walk with many other people over in Media, Pennsylvania in a little bit over, I would say, 3.5 weeks? A little bit, thereabout. April 23rd. The walk will be April 23rd at 10 a.m. The site will open at 9 a.m. And if you want to donate money to that amazing organization, once again, go to rebrand.ly/Venture to a Cure. We got Laura joining us on YouTube, who says, late, sorry, no worries about being sorry. No worries about being late, rather. I'm glad you're here, Laura, and with 4 orange hearts for the National MS Society. Laura, again, muchly appreciated as always. So before we begin, let's do a little bit of Language of Letting Go. And we're going to do 2 readings from Language of Letting Go tonight. We're going to do a reading from the main book of Language of Letting Go, but then we're also going to do a longer reading from more Language of Letting Go towards the end. But this first story talks about patience, and that's part of this. Patience is definitely part of this. How sick and tired we may become of people telling us to be patient or to learn patience. How frustrating it can be to want to finally have something or to move forward and then not to have that happen. How irritating to have someone tell us to wait while our needs have not been met and we're in the midst of anxiety, frustration, and inaction. Do not confuse the suggestion to be patient with the old rule about not having feelings. Being patient does not mean we go through the sometimes grueling process of life and recovery without having feelings. Feel the frustration. Feel the impatience. Get as angry as you need to about not having your needs met. Feel your fear. Controlling our feelings will not control the process. We find patience by surrendering to our feelings. Patience cannot be forced. It is a gift, one that closely follows acceptance and gratitude. When we work through our feelings to fully accept who we are and what we have, we will be ready to be and have more then and only then. Today, I will let myself have my feelings while I practice patience. And let me go over to Maine real quick. So I heard a few comments pop up real quick. We have Matt, co-host of VF Talks, with 4 orange hearts. Thank you, Matt. Good to see you this evening. And Jamie with the 3 orange hearts. Love the orange hearts. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And Matt says, hey everyone, I'm here listening and playing with new tech gadgets. Matt, an honor and pleasure to see you as always, my friend. So patience, that's part of this story. But in order for us to have a talk about personal power, we have to quickly address the past and basically why I'm on this venture. We've talked about that before, but we have to address it really quickly. We then talk about the fundamental hallmarks of our power, how we get that. We develop a strategy to start to get it back, and then we work to obtain it. So that's kind of the show flow for tonight, but kind of disguised in this slide if you think about it. Laura says, today I will let myself have my feelings while practicing patience. Amen. Thank you. So what's the story? I'm going to bring up a couple of slides you've seen before, but we have to basically paint this picture once more. Physically, I was a mess. Could walk barely 10 feet without needing to sit down. Had trouble sleeping at night. Panic attacks, gout, no satiation while eating. I was a person that looked like the person on the left, morbidly obese of a class 4 sort of classification. And over 3 years, I end up dropping 312 pounds, and I look like the gentleman on the right-hand side, who actually is physically able to do a lot of things, including run. And there will be more running coming up for sure. But it's a difference of an incredibly large magnitude. But it's also been an incredible journey. So why wouldn't that change take place, right? Right. Not only was there the physical problem, there was the alcoholism and the gambling. And that was a lack of satiation when drinking, a lack of satiation when gambling, overconsumption of both activities. When you talk about the drinking, there was metabolic paralysis, in the sense that even drinking a little bit was doing horrible things to the way I was, metabolizing things. So, it doesn't matter if I went on a caloric reduction diet. If I was drinking, that was never a good sign for me at all. And then, of course, the gambling brought financial peril. That was another couple of facets that had to be changed. And again, as evident of this 3-year story, there were things that had changed. There were things that definitely were changed. For one reason or another, they were changed. But mainly because I got connected to my mind and I started asking, why was I doing this? Why was I doing this? Why was I doing this? Sometimes the universe will give us reminders on why we should. You notice that the gambling piece was the last piece, the lowest number of the 3 numbers you see in the pre-roll or in the countdown every episode. And that's because that was the last sort of addiction that kind of fell by the wayside, or at least had a better covering of. It took a certified letter from the Internal Revenue Service to tell you one way that you should be walking down. And then you start realizing through everything else that there was a major problem, as if, having a struggle financially wasn't enough. Anyhow, we'll talk about that again somewhere down the road. It's something that I'm very, very adamant about. And, if you ever have questions about how destructive gambling is, you can always reach out to me. But those are the three major things at play. Tonight and Thursday night, we're going to talk about the 8 C's, in the sense that these are the components that build us to what we have to become. Thursday night, we're going to do an episode on internal family systems, a more comprehensive episode than we have talked about previously. So we're going to talk about it at a little more length on Thursday night. But what we talk about as far as the components of an optimized self or a confident self, and that of a compassionate leader, has 8 characteristics. They all start with the letter C. Connectedness, confidence, clarity, courageousness, calm, creative, curiousness, compassionate. When we have those 8 elements in play, we have a better handle on ourselves. When we don't have those components at play, we run the risk of something being misaligned. And we really need to figure out exactly what's going on. Whether it is an external force that is causing us not to feel that way, whether it is a sort of an external mechanism that is forcing us not to take care of ourselves first and foremost. You'll find that those 8 are not form and function on the top of our mind. And that is a major problem. Tonight, you'll see that those 8 have a play with this game plan. But on Thursday, we're going to talk about the importance of those 8 when we talk about the importance of self within the internal family systems model. How do we get there? 3 things. We must admit it always, starting upstairs in our mind, no matter what dilemmas and addictions we face. In my case, you know what the addictions were pretty much, of the drinking, overeating, and gambling. But for others, it could be a multitude of other things. Having a forthright sort of thought about what those things are, at least understanding that it's there, gives us a chance to move past it or have a better handle on it. Piecing together why we create more harm than good because the short term is too attractive and not to see the long-term effect. We talk about the effect of the dopamine drip or the short-term gain, and why we drink or why we overeat or whatnot. And we lose sight of the long-term effects of that. In my case, because I was such a character of excess, it became very well apparent what those effects were. But for some others, it may not be that obvious. It requires a great bunch of realization, self-reflection, and becoming one with yourself. The way we do that is through 3 things: meditation, journaling, and therapy. But I think the overarching bedrock to all that would be the beneficial communities we form and are parts of. I am honest to God thankful for the recovery groups I'm part of. I'm also honest to God thankful for the live streaming groups I'm part of. I'm honest to God thankful for all the friends I've made in the last 3 years. I wouldn't be anywhere near where I am now without all of you. And I will never say this enough, but I thank you and I love you dearly. The community we have is a very important bedrock to what we do. It gives us strength as we provide it strength. We bring that love inside first and foremost and paramount. We try to build that. When we have that well understood and well taken care of, we can then give it to anyone and everyone who's willing to take it. So, that is the 3. Going back to Maine for a second. Jamie says, we love you too. You do great things for this community. Thank you, Jamie. Muchly appreciated. I'm never a loss of words, but I'm very close to being a loss of words because I think about how incredible this community is. And day after day after day, I am more and more and more thankful for all of you. And Laura says, this is a great community. Thank you for allowing me to be here and learn. Thank you for teaching us things as well, Laura. You're incredible, just as much as all of you are. So thank you. What is our personal power? Personal power, two definitions. They're both, I would think, adequate for this conversation tonight. One, personal power is the ability to influence people and events, as you just saw from those comments, and how people have influenced me for much greater things in this life. This form of power comes from individual characteristics rather than formal authority. Personal power is more of an attitude or state of mind. And if you think about it, when we are in harmony, that is a state of mind. That is an attitude. That feeling of love, but also strength, is a state of mind. Someone with strong personal power is focused on their self-efficacy and ability to cooperate with others, which is absolutely the truth. Whether it is the things we do on Tuesday and Thursday nights or the things that you do, our personal power is based on those constructs of self-efficacy and the ability to cooperate with others. I would be nowhere near where I am now without that, for sure. Second definition, as it comes from psychology today, talks about strength, confidence, and competence that individuals gradually acquire during their development. So it's not something that happens all of a sudden. It's something that grows over time. And that's based on being strong enough to learn and being strong enough to be meldable, to work towards something that is greater, work to something that is more self-sustainable. That is part of it. It's self-assertion and a natural, healthy striving for love, satisfaction, and meaning in one's interpersonal world. So the two definitions are pretty close, but you can see how there are a little bit of nuances between the two, both of which are absolutely straight on, spot on, bona fide here. I was thinking when I was coming up with the title for this show this evening, I was thinking personal power, or the power we have, and I was thinking, that's going to sound like an infomercial. This is far from it. This is something where it talks a lot about the journey of my life, but the journey of all your lives. It's basically coming to an understanding of all this. And when we have an understanding of that, it's the better we are as far as taking care of ourselves and taking care of that indeed. So we talk about what personal power is, but then the next question you may have is, how do we obtain it? And this is from April O'Leary, incredibly great speaker, and I definitely recommend all of you going to her site at apriloleary.com. But 7 steps here. 1, you have to know yourself. And that is easier said than done. At least it sounds simple. It's not, because we're always changing. And when we talk about what we talk about on Thursday night, you'll know that there are many different parts to who we are. So knowing what those parts are, knowing our different components is very important. 2 is something I've always talked about. Taking care of yourself first, foremost, and paramount. The old airplane adage, right? Cabin pressure goes out, the masks drop. Who are you covering first? You're covering yourself first, and then you cover everybody else in the row. 3, expressing yourself regularly. Being aware of situations where you may be squelched or shunted, and moving yourself away from that. My realization in the last 36, 38 months is that being squelched and shunted can do horrible things to you if you don't have that well under control. So express yourself regularly. But then the follow-up thought to that is forgive yourself and others for past mistakes. There was a really great meditation point last week that says, if you can write an apology to anyone first, who would you write an apology to? And it took me a while to realize that the answer to that question is me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what I've done. I'm sorry for everything that's taken place. It doesn't talk about the things that I've done that were harmful to others. by my carelessness, my reckless abandon of responsibility. But the first person I felt the need to apologize to is myself. 5 is letting go of toxic relationships. And you wonder why you would do such horrible things to yourself. It could have a lot to do with the toxic relationships you have, or toxic relationships that were grown out of the connection between 2 or 3 people that didn't have the sort of right mindset. So it's very important to realize that toxic relationships can be a very much detrimental thing to anybody's mental mindset, especially when we're trying to overcome addiction, when we're supposed to be working towards a healthier state of mind. 6 would be realizing it's not your job to make everyone else happy. And you wonder why we talk about codependency a lot on this show, especially a lot more in the last 2 months. Codependency is a lot more common than you think. Just many people don't realize it. It's not your job to make everyone else happy. You can make someone else happy, great. But it's not your number one job right now is to make sure your train is on the tracks, first and foremost. Then you can take care of anything else if you choose to or you have enough bandwidth to. But it's not your job. It's not. But then the thought following that is allowing others the freedom to create their own happiness. It's not your say to say what whoever and whatever is going to do to make themselves happy. It's not your call. It's their call. You have conversations about it, but at the end of the day, it's their call. And you hope the best for them. You want them to be happy. And their happiness has nothing to do with what you're going to tell them what to do. Their happiness is totally dependent on them, right? So 6 and 7 on this list talk a lot about codependency. And if you think about the addictions that I have, the addictions that others may have, a lot of it forms from the codependent mind. The more you have that in check, the better off we are. The better off you are certainly are. Going back to Maine for a second. It took me a long time to realize that. I've been in therapy on and off over many years. Lately, the last round of therapy has been 2.5, 3 years almost. And more, it's apparent and obvious that this is the thing I need to do to take care of myself, especially with what we might have learned as kids as we were growing up. We're not necessarily that. It's not to throw any shade on anyone or anything or anybody, but the things we learned yesteryear do not necessarily work now. We have become different people. We have to be stronger than that and have a construct that allows us to be strong not only for ourselves, but strong for anything else we do, any place we go, right? But it starts with ourselves, always. It's a tough concept to think about. It's a tough reality sometimes to harness and become better with. It takes time. It's a growing process. But we must never lose sight of that. Before we go to the next concept, I'm going to do another language of letting go, out of more language of letting go. I want to talk about Thursday night. It's weird, I'm doing the plug for Thursday night before I get to the last couple of things here. I know. It's important. We talk previously on the show about internal family systems. And it's not to say that it's the be-all bona fide sort of top sort of therapy that's out there. There are many people that believe in cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, and others. For me, internal family systems makes a lot of sense. So we're going to spend time on Thursday night talking about it. That's kind of why we were talking about the 8 C's before. And we're going to talk more about firefighters and managers and exiles and self theory, parts theory, as we call Thursday night's episode. It's something that if you have not discussed that yet in therapy, and you are going to therapy, maybe it's something for you to think about. But it's definitely something that is important for sure. And we want to take a look at something that is important. We've also talked about previously, and we're going to do another episode on this down the road, is the power of manifestation, the power of thoughts. It's not necessarily the power of our actions. Obviously, it's the after effect of that. But the power of our thoughts, the power of our mind, the power of manifesting is a very powerful force. A lot of the things I've done in the last 3 years is based on me manifesting these things. The fact that I'm running, the fact that I ran a half marathon, the fact that I'm going to run a full marathon in October, the fact that I lost 300 plus pounds, the fact that I've been able to tackle a lot of things. I had to think these things first, and I had to believe in them. It's one thing to have a pipe dream sort of thought and then have it wander off. It's another to take faith in it and believe it and then keep on putting your energy into that. Your mind, your thinking process is so important, is so powerful. So hopefully, that becomes resonant after the talk tonight, but you'll realize that Thursday night when we talk about parts therapy, and internal family systems. But let's do something out of more language of letting go, because this talks about the power of thoughts. This is a long one. It's a 2-slider. But this is out of More Language of Letting Go, Melody Beattie's book. Incredible book. If you have the language of letting go, I definitely recommend you getting More Language of Letting Go, because it has passages in there that basically back up what you see in the main book. But let's talk about the power of thoughts. The power of thoughts, the power of thinking. Man. In 1922, Egypt hailed the discovery of King Tut's tomb by archaeologist Harold Carter. On the walls of the tomb, the magicians in the king's court had scrawled that a severe punishment would befall anyone disturbing the contents of the burial site. Over the next 10 years, more than 20 people involved with the excavation died suddenly or mysteriously. Whether you call it a curse or a hypnotic suggestion of sorts, what we're talking about is the tremendous impact that suggestions have on us. What we're talking about is the power of belief. Many of us spend thousands of dollars in therapy and years of our lifetime disentangling our thoughts from the beliefs of our parents, beliefs that were passed on by them by their parents and their grandparents, and even further down the ancestral line. Sometimes the effects of other people's thoughts are less blatant and even more controlling. We can react instinctively to the silent demands of a spouse or lover or best friend or a boss. They smile or frown or just look at us, and we know what they mean and expect. Sometimes a casual comment by a friend can send us into a tailspin when they suggest, "You can't do that. It won't work. Do it this way." Months later, when the way we're trying to do it isn't working out, and we keep trying and wonder why, we look back and say, "Oh, my friend told me to do it this way. Maybe they were wrong." An important part of living in harmony with others means we enjoy things that please them, and we don't unnecessarily or maliciously hurt those with whom we interact. An important part of being true to ourselves means checking ourselves from time to time to see if the things we're doing are really what we want, or if we're just a puppet and someone else is pulling our strings. God, help me respect the power of belief. That's more language of letting go. Think about that for a second. It's not to say that we automatically do that sort of thing, but we have to be aware of it. And more times than not, we have a laissez-faire sort of attitude of what others may say or others may do without us trying to wake up and realize it. It doesn't mean that they're malevolent. Far from it. But even if they're controlling, we have to be at least aware of it. Some comments. Laura says, yes, making decisions based on what you know others will think or say. Or the fallacy of thinking you can mind read. Well, I'm certainly not Kruskin, and I'm certainly not a mind reader. And I don't think I could basically bend forks or silverware with my mind. If you think I can, I can't. Uri Geller, amazing skill. Can't do it. Nevertheless, don't have the ability to do that. But what I do know is what's going on up here. I can talk about what's in my mind. I can talk about what I'm feeling. I could talk about how I perceive things to be. And if it requires me to go back and amend that because I might have not known everything, that's perfectly fine. Because we are learning and growing. The more we learn is exactly the more we grow. There's nothing wrong with that. Jamie says, good one. The puppet bit got me. And she says, in the power of belief. Yeah. The power of belief is huge. We have to think it in order for us to work towards it. Sometimes things happen by happy accident. But more times than not, if we have our thoughts around something, we can make something work if we believe in it and we believe in ourselves. The power of belief, the power of manifesting is very much a real thing. And not that I'm trying to plug that movie once again, or that book rather, but The Secret basically changed my life. It was me sitting in a hotel room in Chicago back in 2019 that made me realize it is possible rather for me to manifest and believe in things and see them to its success. But we have to believe. We are capable, and it starts with a thought. Needless to say, these language of letting goes, whether we do language of letting go out of the main book or more language of letting go, is very much an important part of this story. And we'll continue to do that in future episodes of the Venture Forward. Thursday, as we talked to before, we're going to talk about internal family systems and parts therapy. It's basically the therapy that I've subscribed to over the last 2.5 years and has been very much fundamental for this journey. And we're going to talk about exactly what is internal family systems and the components therein. That'll be Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. And then Friday night, we're going to do what we do every Friday night and have a conversation about anything and everything on VF Talks with Matt Haas, Paul Burke, and all of you. It is the most fun 2 hours of the week, and I look forward to it every single time. And that'll be Friday night, 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific. A couple more comments. I think one more popped up over here. Jamie says, definitely, Laura, assuming other people's thoughts is something I have to be careful about doing. I do it way too much. I'm guilty of it too. Even after all of this, I'm still guilty of it. But I think I've become a bit better of trying to figure out exactly, oops, I did that. And I try to quickly correct it or just realize that that's something that I did. Being aware is the most important thing we can do. And that said, thank all of you for showing up tonight and being part of this conversation. Muchly appreciated for all of you. And I just love this community big time. Love you all. But I'm going to say the same thing I say at the end of every Venture Forward in VF Talks. Stay safe, stay sane, stay strong, stay sober. You're worth it. We'll see you again Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific for the next episode of the Venture Forward. Have a wonderful night. I love you all, and fly be free.